I'm sure a lot of you just spit, particularly my coworkers that recommended the Final Destination series to me, believe it or not. I'm sure a lot of you just spit, just want to slap me in the face now. So, I'm going to be honest, I feel like the fair way I can do this review is by basically just saying, giving my thoughts and opinions on the other six Final Destination, or is it five? Pretty sure. Okay, I'm pretty sure the one I'm reviewing now is the sixth one. I'll give my opinion on the five movies, or is it four? I don't know. There are so many of these freaking movies, but I'm just gonna give my opinion on the original. I'm pretty sure it's five. Pretty sure it's five. I'm like 90% positive there are five Final Destinations. Yes, there are five Final Destinations. I just figured it out. So I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on the Final Destination series as a whole in the previous films. And then I'll give my thoughts on the new one and why I consider it the better one. Now I want to make it clear, just because this one's more critically acclaimed, I'm not going off of the critics' opinions with this new movie. I'm just going off of based on my own opinion and my opinion on the previous Final Destination. So I'm not agreeing with the critics here by any means. I don't think it deserves as high rating as it claims, but I will be honest, it's one of the better ones. So, getting into the original five films, first two, I would say, are kind of guilty pleasures of mine. Sorry, I'm keeping an eye on the fire. Are kind of guilty pleasures of mine. I find them entertaining. And they're pretty fun in their own right. Like the log scene at the beginning of the second movie, the deaths in that movie are pretty insane, but there are just a lot of character decisions and a lot of moments in those movies that aren't for me. I'm not a gore hungry horror movie fan. I'm not even a big fan of the Saw franchise, but I do like the movie series, the first two at least, overall, that they're guilty pleasures of mine. They're entertaining. I don't think they're fantastic by any means, but they're entertaining, and that's what a movie is supposed to be, in my opinion. They're not supposed to be Oscar winners. They're supposed to entertain you and just get your mind off a couple of things, and that's exactly what the first two do. Third one is where it starts to stumble and fumble a little bit. I barely remember the third one, if I'm going to be honest. Apart from the roller coaster death scene and the sauna where the two girls are, and you get obligatory nudity in that movie, where the two girls are self-tanning and then they just die. I feel like those are the only moments I remember from the third one. The fourth one is just hilariously bad. It is just bottom of the barrel. This movie should have just stopped from there. And the pool death scene, as horrifying as the concept is in that, it's still kind of a goofy death, and it's just overall just not a great movie. Thankfully, it's the shortest of the series. And then the fifth one, it represents a pretty significant, upgrade in terms of the previous films, and it's really ranked as one of my... So I'd say the first two and then the fifth one are pretty good. And it has a pretty cool twist by having it be a prequel. Spoiler alert for people who haven't seen that movie, but movies have been out for a while. You guys can, especially if you're a huge fan of Final Destination, I'm sure you know the ending. If you don't, my bad. But it has a pretty cool twist in the end there. And then we get to this new movie. Oh boy. Where do I begin with this? Because there is a lot to unpack here, and I don't want to make this review already longer than it probably is going to be. First, let me just say one of the biggest improvements about this new movie that the previous films don't do is the fact that this is more family-oriented. Both in terms of the story and in terms of, I feel like there's more emotion and more heart to this, which is kind of weird to say, but there is just so much more in this new movie than the previous films. Because the previous films, they're mostly just high schoolers or just douchey teens that are just kind of assholes to each other. So I do like the fact that there is just a little bit more heart, less cynicism going around here, less hating each other. And don't get me wrong, I love some of the cynicism in the previous films, but when those characters died, I was just thank God. But in this movie, when characters die, I feel an impact. I'm just like, oh shoot, they died? Damn, that's harsh. And on top of that, the kills are just as gory as ever. And just as Rube Goldbergian as ever. If you don't know who that is, he's just a guy that does a lot of traps. So, Rube Goldberg, those traps are still in there. And it's really cool. Especially since part of the reason why I like this movie so much, and I feel like this kind of makes me a little bit, it's giving it a little bit of a boost in terms of how much I enjoyed it, is I saw this movie in IMAX. So, spoiler alert, I did see this in theaters. The coworker that saw this without me, yeah, that really hurts, man. But, joke's on you, I saw it in IMAX when it re-released before it didn't come out in theaters. Yeah, they did a weird re-release in my theater. I don't know if it was like the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of IMAX movies going on or something, but yeah, just randomly during the summer, they just decided, hey, we got this movie re-releasing in IMAX. So I got to see it in IMAX, and it was really cool because during all the crazy intense scenes, I mean, the aspect ratio changed, and it's really cool when it does that because it makes it feel more immersive. Sorry, that's the fire crackling right there. Looks like I got a decent fire going now. But there is that. And especially in the beginning, the opening scene, which is like, I swear, like 15, 20 minutes tops. And it does do a weird expectation subversion. That's what's also really cool, is that it starts off with one of the characters that you meet later. And then after the flashback, it shows you the character that, like, in the present. Because the flashback is set in the past, which was really cool. And kind of just outside the expected norm of Final Destination movies. So I find it cool they did that. The acting is really good, in my opinion. And like I said, the deaths are as gruesome as ever. And I also really like the fact that there is a lot of humor in this movie. There were quite a few laughs in my theater, and just me personally, I kind of laughed at a few of these deaths, a few of these jokes. The characters were... Although there were a few, like, obviously it's a movie, so some behavior is a little bit like, I don't think a person humping a trash compactor and kissing it would really go down in real life. Hey, there's a lot of weirdos out there. No context needed. Watch the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. And there is some really gruesome deaths. Like, some deaths in here I kind of just turned away from because I was just like, damn, that was really, really bloody and gruesome. So if you're looking for that, it delivers. And in my opinion, I hate to be that guy, but the story is just much better, in my opinion. Just, it respects the franchise. And I mean, I binge watched the entire series before watching this new movie. And then I found it pretty rewarding because then I was just like, ooh, I understand that reference. Granted, at the end, it does get a little bit like, oh, okay. I don't want to spoil it. I will spoil it, actually. I changed my mind. As I'm, in a house covered in logs here. But there is a couple of appearances of the log truck from the second movie. And particularly in the end, it does make an appearance. It kind of made me roll my eyes, and that's the thing about this ending. You're either going to love it or hate it. I was indifferent. It's kind of sad, in a way, but just that one little scene with the log truck, it kind of made me roll my eyes. I also like how self-aware this movie is, how goofy its premise normally is. There is a scene near the middle of it where one of the characters are, trying to warn another, and she's just like, oh, well, maybe this might happen. Obviously, he's not believing her because who would you believe? If an insane person said, hey, you're going to die in this absolute insane way, avoid this, you're not going to believe them. You're just going to think they're crazy, right? Well, that's what's going on in this movie. And yeah, there's a bunch of different scenarios that she's playing out in her head. Oh, well, maybe this might happen or this might happen. And then one of the characters you think it's going to happen to, she's off doing her own thing, and it kind of happens in the background of a scene, but you see her doing her thing, and then all the reasons she listed, it just suddenly unfolds in like this insane way that got probably one of the biggest laughs I got in a horror movie since I can't even remember how long. It was that insane. And also, it was just fun to watch, like just them going like, oh, I now know how this series goes now, and that's how I feel like how it would go down. And on top of that, it's just like one of the characters in particular, the one at the beginning, she's obviously older because this is set in the modern day, from the flashback, and she knows how death works and everything and all that, but there is like a couple of moments where she is just like, I see you, Death. I know what you're gonna do. I'm gonna stop you from doing it. She gets a gnarly kill in this movie. Spoiler alert. But this movie is just all around a fun, good time. And that's probably why I liked it the most. I'm gonna probably just end my review there because I've already explained pretty much what I loved about this movie all at once. Because I feel like it's just a lot more fun. The story's a little bit better. And the characters are just a little bit more likable. Still have that, like, you know, reality button a little bit kind of iffy, but overall, it's just a fun, good time, and I enjoyed it quite thoroughly. And I feel like there's a lot to pick up on in this movie, even if this is your first Final Destination movie. It's good overall. I feel like this can be enjoyed without watching the overall series. So if you're ever wondering if Final Destination is good, give this one a watch. But if you want to watch the other series, it is more rewarding because you'll pick up on the references and everything. But overall, solid movie. All around good time. I recommend it. See ya. One more thing I want to mention about this movie that I kind of sidetracked on. Tony Todd, rest in peace to the legend. He was in, apart from one, and he just voiced a character in the third one, apart from one Final Destination, he appeared in all of them, except I would say the fourth one and the third one. He doesn't make a physical appearance, he just voices a cameo. But rest in peace to the legend Tony Todd, who played Candyman, and in one of my favorite action movies, he voiced the Fallen from Revenge of the Fallen from Transformers, and he gives a really good, heartfelt, overall final message as his character as William Bloodworth. You get his origin story in this movie a little bit, but he does have a heartwarming scene, and at the end they do dedicate this movie to his memory, and I feel like that's a really cool thing too. So props to the filmmakers. Rest in peace, Tony Todd. You are a horror legend. That's about it. See ya.